Welcome to the Squared Circle Pit with your host, Rob Pasbani.
Now entering the Squared Circle Pit, I'm very excited to have my special guest. He is the art director of Sumerian Records and likely designed a record you've certainly held in your hands. Talking about to Daniel McBride today. Daniel, thanks for joining me.
What's up, man? Thank you for having me. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, we've known each other for quite a while now, and we DM about wrestling all the time.
Yeah, I think we've known each other. I met you about 10 years ago at the Golden Gods Awards. And out of all the people there, Pantera was playing and all these other bands. But I was excited to see Thor Shredsteen, if you're one of your past gimmicks from another life. But
right.
Yeah, we shot the shit and we caught up, and I was texting my friends that I just met Thor Shredsteen. So glad to be here.
I do remember that very vividly because, it was the Golden Gods. We're backstage. We're a little sauced up, or at least I was. I don't know about you, but I definitely had a few drinks. And then you're coming at me with these Fanta quotes. And I was like, oh, wow. Somebody who actually has seen one of my bits. So that was great.
Maybe it was the first for you, but me and my guitarist from my old band, we would quote those videos all the time, just goofing around and, just oh my god, yeah, the live from BootyCon, and you gotta bring that gimmick back. I think it's time. The 10-year itch is here, so.
It's back. Prague is back in the scene. It's certainly time. What kind of put me off to? So the character is called Thor Shredsteen. You can look it up on YouTube. They're all there. But what put me up to it is Brendan Small actually also did a character, and he also named it Thor. And it was exactly the same idea, completely parallel thinking, because I had, this was like a bonus on the first Death Clock DVD, and someone showed it to me and I was blown away. But so then that kind of put me off doing it too much. And also the character, I kind of, initially the joke was on me, the character Thor, that Thor was an idiot. But then when I would try to do the character, I would play it too much like a bully, and the joke would be on the other person, and I didn't like that, so I kind of stopped doing it.
He was pretty alpha, to say the least.
Right.
Definitely. He wanted things done his way. He's very particular, and I think when you're doing a live from BootyCon DVD and album, you have every right to make these requests. So
I appreciate it.
Fine.
But let's talk about pro wrestling. So this is the connection between pro wrestling and rock music. And I always ask, what did you get into first, rock or pro wrestling?
Oh, pro wrestling, 100%. I mean, I was 5 years old in 1990, and so I had like a Hulk Hogan hat in kindergarten. I remember that. I think the earliest memory that stands out, and I would have to look up actually when it happened, was seeing Jannetty get kicked through the barbershop window. I was watching that live, just late at night on a Saturday or whatever, and that just stuck. I just remember sitting there after the show had ended for like 15 or 20 minutes, just wondering what I just saw, and I didn't have anybody to talk to about it, or what just happened. I was just shook by that. But
so no one introduced you to wrestling. You got into it yourself?
I think I just found it on TV one day, honestly. And then I remember one of my mom's friends caught on that I was watching it all the time, and then he decided to take me to like a live event, like a house show in Albuquerque. And I want to say that was like when Big Boss Man and Nails were feuding. So I remember seeing them, and I think it was Ric Flair and Macho Man in a cage for the main event. So this is like 91, 92 probably, that I was like, I started to really get into it. Started renting all the VHS tapes at Blockbuster and catching up on all the Survivor Series and Royal Rumbles that I had missed. And it just really caught me. I mean, Ultimate Warrior is like the catalyst. Probably, I think I probably just saw him and I was like, okay, this is really cool. But yeah, here I am, like all these years later, still watching WWE and still keeping up with things. Because of that whole era and things. So
that's really cool. Yeah. So you got into, I'm guessing it's probably because, wrestling was on right after Saturday morning cartoons. You probably just left the TV on and.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was, waking up to watch Ninja Turtles and, all the Fox shows. And I think Superstars would probably come on. Yeah. I don't have the pivotal point of watching it for the first time, I just remember that I had caught on to it somehow. Yeah.
No, that's cool that you had somebody to take you to house shows. I feel like that was a big awakening for me, was seeing it in person and seeing these
Yeah.
people in like
Getting
three
the merch,
dimensions.
getting
Yeah.
the foam fingers and the foam, I had the foam nightstick, the big boss man. I would just run around my house and just,
So
um,
Ultimate Warrior was your guy. So who were some other guys growing up for you?
yeah, Warrior. Actually, even as like a 5 or 6 year old, I loved Mr. Perfect for some reason. I don't know why. I just thought Mr. Perfect was amazing. But Warrior was always my number one, and like still, if you ask me, I wouldn't count him as like my favorite like technician wrestler or anything, but like favorite character, favorite persona ever, 100% the Warrior. Um, I was a Hogan fan too, but like I never saw him as any better than the Warrior. Honestly, like I thought Warrior was number one. And then he disappeared. And when you're like 7 years old and your favorite character just stops showing up on TV and stuff, you're just like, and you don't have dirt sheets to look at as a 7-year-old. You're just kind of like, what? Where'd he go? Like what? And then he would come back, every couple of years for a couple of months, and then you'd be even more confused. So that really shook me up. And I think there was probably until like the Monday Night Wars came on, I don't think I really watched that much after Warrior took off. So maybe like 94, 95, I might have just tuned out. And then I just remember, yeah, watching the Monday Night Wars and flipping back and forth every Monday night with my stepdad, and as they were going into the Attitude era. So
How did you get
that's
back
where I
into
caught up
it?
on
Do you
things.
remember? Like what caught your eye again to dive back in?
Yeah. Um, I think it might have been hearing about ECW actually, because I would, just you'd be watching cable on the little like preview channel, the little thing that just like slides, and then they would have like a commercial for, this Sunday, the first ever ECW pay-per-view, whatever it was. And I was like, whoa, this is what wrestling is now. Like, and so maybe that piqued my curiosity. I definitely remember ordering like one of the RVD Jerry Lynn pay-per-views just as my first. I had never seen ECW on TV in Albuquerque. They didn't show it. So yeah. And then once they did that kind of crossover kind of bit too, they started bringing ECW guys onto Raw and all that stuff. So I think that's probably where I actually came back into things. Yeah.
Nice. And so that's cool. So now let's talk about rock music. How did you dive into the world of music
Oh
past
man.
like pop
Well,
music or anything like that?
yeah. Well, my dad is a drummer. He's been playing since he was like 14 in bands. He played in probably like 50 bands in Orange County. All through the 70s, 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s. And so, I'm a drummer too. So that was kind of like already in my blood, kind of built in. So his favorite band is Led Zeppelin, and that quickly became, my favorite band. Like they're my ultimate warrior of music is Led Zeppelin. So I got into them very early, and I was probably more into classic rock than anything before I found metal. I probably found Pantera probably like freshman year of high school. I think that was right when Slipknot came out too. So it's probably Pantera, then Slipknot, and then found Napster, and then just started just finding bands like In Flames and eventually Killswitch and stuff that way, just like any other kid in 2000 2001. So
With your dad being a classic rock guy, what did he think of a band like Slipknot or the more aggressive stuff you were
well,
listening to?
he actually really appreciates. I mean, I played Meshuggah for him the last time he was visiting me, and he's just blown away by what they're doing. But I think that was the first time where he heard like insane double bass like that, and he knew that piqued my curiosity. I wanted to get a double pedal, and I think first he kind of like maybe thought that was kind of cheating. He's very much in the Led Zeppelin mindset of, I mean, Bonham tried to use two bass drums and they would hide his bass drum from him. His second bass drum was like, no, you're only using one bass drum, dude. What are you doing? So maybe as like an old school drummer, he thought, don't even bother. But then he saw what you're able to do with one of these, and he appreciates the endurance and the technicality of everything. So yeah, I quickly caught on to that. I heard Slipknot and I bought a double pedal that weekend as a freshman. So that quickly changed my entire trajectory of being a music fan and being a metalhead, that was my whole catalyst too. So
Yeah, that's great, and it's cool that you have the craftsmanship of the drumming as well, so you could appreciate it from another level.
yeah, and then like I said, I mean, I'll show him whatever I'm listening to, and he's able to find something that he appreciates about it. So um, for being a drummer for over 50 years, that's a pretty cool mindset to have, I guess. But yeah, it's, like I guess in wrestling, if you want to relate that to wrestling, it's like, what do all these, you know, dudes from the territory days think of all these guys doing backflips and shooting star presses and five super kicks? You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
how Cornette might think, or people like that. Um, so there's a parallel right there. It's like this new paradigm shift of drumming, a double bass pedal or two bass drums. Um, yeah, at first we're like, "Wait, what are you doing?" But then it's like, oh, that's what they're doing. Okay, cool. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, and also obviously, you're a art director, so there's graphic design as well. When were you captured by it and thinking like, oh, this is something I could do as well?
Um, well, I mean, as a kid watching WWE, I was really into drawing. I would draw, Warrior and my own, wrestling creations sometimes. And I was really into, I probably have sketchbooks in my mom's attic from, the 90s of just all these wrestlers and stuff like that. But um, probably not till, like, I picked up Photoshop a little bit in high school, but it wasn't until I was in my own band, Last House on the Left, that I just, out of necessity, like, we needed flyers. We needed our MySpace to look good. I had Photoshop already, so I just kind of picked up on it. After about like maybe a year of doing our own stuff, like other bands, like I remember the first time another band hit me up, like, "Hey, can you do that for us and I'll pay you?" I was like, "Oh, I can like, make money doing this too. I have all the time in the world." Like I wasn't working, I was, just playing in a band. So yeah, I was hardly charging anything back then. Like it was maybe like 25 for a logo, like $25. um, so I didn't know what I was doing, and I honestly still don't. I never took a single class for this. I found all this after I had graduated from college, like right after I graduated with my liberal arts degree. Decided Photoshop and graphic design might be my route. So I kind of wish I would have figured that out earlier. But yeah, I was probably 22 when I joined that band and started making MySpace layouts for everybody, and or at least the bands in my area, and then other people from around the state started hitting me up too. So um, yeah, it just kind of took off from there. Sumerian somehow got a hold of me in like 2007, and they needed the logo done for a band, and I'm still working for them today. So
Nice. So it was a total self-taught thing. That's awesome. Same. I never took any. Well, I tried to take graphic design classes, but at the time, the medium, or I should say, like web design stuff, the medium was so new
mhm.
that you could only do like an art program, which would be also not like just digital art. You'd have to do like painting and all this stuff, and I could not paint or draw or do any of that,
Mm.
or do like a computer science major where you have to take, C and all these other programming languages that I would never
Right,
use. I was just like,
coding and
no,
stuff.
I just want to make websites. I want my major,
Yeah.
and no such thing existed at the time for me.
Yeah, but yeah, actually, I kind of picked up on a little bit of web design. I don't know if you remember what eFeds were.
Of
Like,
course.
okay, yeah, I was really into eFeds in like 99, 2000, where you're essentially you make up a character, you're in a federation, and you would cut promos via text, like an essay talking about what your promo is and the guy that the booker put you up against for that event. And then through either the guy that was running everything, or voting, it would be decided who won that week. And you needed to actually know a lot of HTML and stuff to make those look cool, and like have your, when you're like narrating it, you put it in italics and cool font and red, and then he's speaking and that's in green. And like I got really into that, and I
It's
actually started
layout.
making like GeoCity websites and stuff like that. I tried to make my own. I would lose interest after like 3 weeks of, I would be recruiting people from other eFeds to join my eFed. So I was kind of like a little, you know, wrestling promoter on the internet at like age 14.
Yeah, same.
I would always lie. I would always lie about my age too, and I didn't want people to know I was 14, so I would just say I was 18, and like, I was pretty well spoken and like, typed pretty well. So I just wanted these guys to respect me. I could tell that they were like high schoolers and seniors, and I was like, I don't want them to know I'm just like some kid. So that was fun, but yeah, quickly got. I would also make my own South Park wrestlers in Paint. I think that's my first actual introduction to graphic design. Was I saw those South Park wrestlers, the Kenny's Crib. Every week he would come out with a new set of, the Nation of Domination or DX or whatever, and I realized that like he's just using like templates here. Like he's stock body, stock eyes, and then he's changing some things up from there. I was like, I could do that in Paint. And I remember I made my own templates, so I would just open it up and then have a base to start with and make my own guys in Paint. And I was 14 years old probably. So yeah, I just remember that out of nowhere. Wow.
Yeah, that's the same way I learned how to code. Same trajectory. I also did eFeds. I was in like the chat groups on AOL, and then AOL.
Yeah, typing like 1, 2, 3 like as fast as you can.
Yeah.
Would you like pin 1, 2, 3? Like,
exactly. Yeah.
That was me doing that. Oh my god.
Then I started my own eFed, and I had like a Napoleon complex where I would only push my character, and so everyone else quit. But AOL had like a members homepage area where you could build your own homepage, and it was like a very basic kind of like WYSIWYG kind of thing to build a website. And it also, I learned very quickly of this unbelievable trick where you could right click any web page and you click view source, and it's
view
like
source.
the biggest secrets. It's like it's all there. It's all there.
I mean,
copying and pasting.
You're talking to someone who did MySpace layouts for bands for a living from 2007 until they switched it up in like 2010 when they changed the whole layout, and I realized that I can't do this anymore. But yeah, I mean, building your own template as like a collage from what a bunch of other people are doing. I never like straight up just jack someone's entire code.
Just little pieces, like this is how you build a table. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I don't think that's cheating or anything. That's why that's there.
Yeah, I mean, if collage art is art, then it's not cheating. So it's not cheating. It's music is hybridizing all of your influences too. So you'd see one thing that a guy was doing, like the little hover over kind of thing, or like, oh, you grab that, and but this guy's using this table setup, and it was fun. My brain worked a totally different way back then. If you asked me to code something now, my brain would shut down completely. But your muscle has atrophied. It's the same. It was the same for me. I'd be coding every day. Like I could build a website in like 2 hours, like a full site. I could get it functioning. Oh God!
Because I would just build them out so quickly. But yeah, the way I learned was through wrestling, because I launched my own wrestling website. Or first I worked for other people's wrestling websites, and then I launched my own wrestlingarena.com, and it was surprisingly profitable because it was during the .com bubble, and also wrestling was huge. So there was like really crazy ad CPMs, and so it was like a nice few months. After I'd get home from school, I would peruse all the wrestling news sites that I could within an hour. Like I would go to like 15, 20 different sites and, just see what, okay, all right, they're all talking about that. That's probably real. Or like this site's talking about that. That's probably bullshit. It was much less, there was much less vetting because there was no one to call out. There was no comment sections. There was just forums.
And it was so much easier to find on Google, like a Google search result. You'd be like wrestling news, and like, you'd get real results in like different pages. And now if you try to do that, you'd get like advertisements and like sponsored ads, and
it would just be so much, because it would just be also just a listing. You can go like the alphabetical W and then just wrestling and find all the wrestling websites.
Yeah, it's
so fun. I think
it's so much harder to find things.
It just reminded me, one of my websites was actually allwrestling.com was my first website, because I thought it would be like, I wanted something with an A.
Alphabetical.
Yeah, so it's at the top of that listing.
Aaronswrestling.com. Yeah.
A plus wrestling.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah.
That's so funny. That's really
the whole
the
whole
I'm getting
.com
at
bubble era was hilarious.
Is wrestling was a huge influence on my graphic design style. and just or even just my language of graphic design, because I was so exposed to like hours of wrestling a week that's where I saw how marketing works, or how, like how you design a logo, or what should stand out in a logo. Like, what kind of influence did you take from wrestling in your graphic design work?
Okay, so probably, I mean, remember on like Superstars in the 90s where they'd have the little promo bits, and they'd have like the green screen backgrounds with the logo that was like different it would like, hot neon color with the like Crush, for example, would always have like the big Crush logo behind him, and they really branded the hell out of that. Like,
everyone
real
had their
logo
own brand, and I thought those. I would actually draw those. I didn't draw the wrestlers. I would draw their logos.
Yeah, I mean, drawing the Warrior face paint logo on like everything I had.
Or like Legion of Doom, their logo I would draw all the time.
Yeah, you'd quickly pick up on the power of branding. I mean, Hulk Hogan, just the yellow and red color branding. Yeah, I think that all probably like subconsciously got into my head, because what I do is I have to do that for bands, which are entities. You know what I mean? So
yeah, they all have their own
example,
logo, their own brand.
Yeah, and you need something to roll with that will stand the test of time, that can evolve over time, and even the choices that I make with like what colors to use and to really push, like, it's like, oh, this album feels pretty orange to me, you know what I mean? Like, let's really push orange pretty hard. Like, all that stuff really, I mean, Vince McMahon was doing it in the 90s with, when he saw what was happening. As soon as he caught a whiff of neon colors, everyone was wearing neon colors. He knew that looked cool on TV. He knew that was like fashionably, trending, and he really, as a company, they jumped all over that. I mean, the merch catalogs from the early 90s were just like a lot of like bonkers stuff. I mean, you see these shirts, the Razor Ramon all over print t-shirt that sells for like $700 in a thrift store now. Like, they were so ahead of marketing and merchandising and stuff.
And even like the original logos that they use, like the WrestleMania logo is such a timeless logo. Just the original WWF, like that icon with the chrome inside. I'm always
the beginning of the Coliseum home video, like the intro when it was flying over like the desert, like those colors, the color schemes they would pick, everything. The Royal Rumble logo with like, the bookends are bigger than the Royal. It's just how it all fit into a rectangle. Like, all that stuff like really stands out. And like I said, that's kind of what I do now is, and the fact that like I'm working with, our roster is very big. So I also have to make sure that things aren't kind of like overlapping too much. A band like Born of Osiris and After the Burial, both on Sumerian, both kind of in the same realm. It would be easy to like, brand them to say, I got to make sure that they're like, completely separated in that regard. So I think with wrestling, everyone kind of had their own thing. Like Bret Hart had the pink, and the Rockers had the lime green, and that was all like thought out. It wasn't just like, didn't just happen that way.
I always wish that they would like interview their graphic design team from that era, because I'm so curious about, like, these are completely faceless people. Like, who designed these logos?
My boss Ash has one of the coolest. It's a promo pack. It's like a folder from WWE from probably 1990 about the Survivor Series. They probably sent this out to like the major businesses in the area that were like,
it's like an EPK for WWE.
Exactly. But it's so cool. And just the dividers are all different neon colors, and the way that they have everything all laid out and all the text and the photos that they picked, and like that like is cooler to me than a lot of other wrestling stuff like that.
I mean, their marketing
kind of
stuff was a huge influence on me, even on like stuff I would do when I was doing metal injection. Like all of my design stuff, you could trace back to that wrestling stuff. And with you even, I feel like, did you design those Summer Slaughter posters?
That was my partner Eddie.
Okay.
So it's Sumerian. It's me and Eddie. It's been me and Eddie in the art department this pretty much the entire time. He's actually working there before me, but yeah, he's the guy who illustrates all the the different monster every year, and
Because I would say even those kind of look like wrestling posters, like in a way, like
I think he's probably more into like comic books and like Mortal Kombat and games like that than wrestling. I think he probably watched as a kid, but I mean, yeah, I think every kid my age watched wrestling at some point, and you're gonna pick up something from it. So
yeah,
wouldn't be like. And then plus my boss is a huge wrestling fan too. There's been plenty of times where he's had input that's a wrestling reference or whatever, and we've done. I mean, he managed Ultimate Warrior there for a while before he passed too. So we were kind of.
I was going to ask, were you involved with
yeah.
that reality series that was going on for a little bit? Like, did you meet him during that time?
I met him, yeah. So I met him. He did a track for Winds of Plague.
That's
there's
right.
a Winds of Plague. Yeah. Okay. So you've heard that called the Warrior Code.
Of course, I heard.
Which was yeah.
Are you kidding?
I was there. It was me and Warrior and the engineer in the studio in Albuquerque. He lived in Santa Fe at the time. Warrior did. Mm-hmm. So my boss hooked that up. He's like, McBride, find a studio that he can come down to in Albuquerque and track this. So I got to meet my idol and be in a room with him and one other person for about an hour and a half, and absolutely the most surreal experience of my life.
What was your first impression? Like you walk in, is he there already, or he comes in after you?
I'm there already. We're getting set up. We're waiting for him. He knocks. We let him in. He comes in. I remember thinking he's a little bit shorter than I thought he would be.
Oh, interesting.
But as soon as I'm like 6 foot and he's maybe like 5'11".
Okay.
So I was like, I thought he was going to be taller than me. But as soon as I shook his hand, just the electricity, it's going to sound cliche because it's his gimmick, but like I felt a surge of electricity go through my entire body.
The power of the warrior was inside you.
It's real, dude. And what's really crazy is the lines, the wrinkles that formed in his face look like the mask. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if it looked like he was still wearing the mask when you catch him in the right light. And that was real, because I'd be in the console room. He'd be in the booth. We'd just be watching him in the booth with his headphones on. And that was actually the first time. This was before he came back on YouTube and started doing those all those videos and stuff. Right before that. So this was the first time of him channeling the warrior voice in years. He needed to warm it up. He hadn't done it in a long time.
That's really interesting. I didn't think about that.
You've heard his regular voice. It's already pretty deep, but for him to get that grasp, he was like, it took him a while. I actually have right here. Let me just pull this up really quick. So that right here, that is the notes he brought into the studio. And I have that framed with this Rob Schamberger warrior piece here. Mm-hmm. It's my little warrior shrine. So he comes in with his notes. He's, trying different things. He's scratching things out. He's trying different words and stuff. He's playing to the track, which is like a breakdown. It's like Oriental, Japanese kind of old, feudal sounding samurai music, and then of him talking over that. And then a breakdown kicks in and then he starts screaming. It was intense. So he knocked that out in about 20 minutes, and then he stuck around for about 45 or maybe an hour just talking to me and the engineer, Sid. And he divulged to me a story that I don't think has ever been told, and I don't think I'd be comfortable talking about here, because the fact that he, all I'll have to say is that it's the events that led up to WrestleMania 6, the whole 24 hours leading up to WrestleMania 6 of Vince and Hulk coming back to him with, this is how it's going to happen. No, wait, this is how it's going to happen. No, wait, this is how it's going to happen.
Okay, so his side of the biggest match of his career against Hulk Hogan, title for title. Interesting.
Yeah. Shenanigans backstage. This is all I can really say. He put them, I was like, you just said that about them? That's what was happening? Okay. So I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to make any accusations, but that bewildered me, because after he left, I was like, he just told us that? He trusted us enough to just.
Did you consider emailing Dave Meltzer immediately, giving him this?
No, I didn't. But that was wild. But there was a lot of back and forth. I'll say that the whole 24 hours leading up to that, I guess the plan would change every hour. even through the night. And he was just like, he would just be like, all right, and then they'd come back like, oh, and he'd be like, cool, like, just let me know like what I need to do. He was pretty chill about it. But he also told me a funny story about how him and Savage would just steal the coffee maker from catering and then lock themselves in their own dressing room and basically just hoard all the coffee to themselves. They would just pound all the coffee and then they'd make more for themselves, and they wouldn't let the boy. They would just have their own personal coffee, the big like silos kind of thing. So yeah, so they would just pound caffeine all day long, him and Macho Man, apparently.
You don't have to convince me of that. One look at their promos and you can tell they're very caffeinated people.
Yeah. Sometimes you think it's like maybe something else, but like, no, the boys loved their coffee too. So a lot of the times you could just like,
I'm
nothing
curious,
harder than that.
How did he show up like clothing wise? Like what does Warrior wear in a casual off camera appearance?
I think he was probably wearing some like slightly bedazzled jeans and a kind of like a work coat.
So like an Ed Hardy jeans, kind of like Ed Hardy style.
Maybe. Yeah. I think I might have a picture on my Facebook I could find for you. Actually, I have photographic evidence of what he was wearing that
That's
night.
That's good. That could be the thumbnail.
You can see my face where I'm just like, I'm like just way too happy to be taking a picture. I look like just cheesing completely. But yeah, so that was my time meeting Warrior. And then that track ended up on a Winds of Plague album. My boss was managing him through his whole, return to YouTube. And then I think he ended up on like TMZ there for a bit and kind of had his whole like, oh, here's the Warrior again. He has like an internet presence. And then, they came out with that. It's kind of like a pilot, like a 2-episode pilot for a Warrior reality show where he would whip these bands back into shape. And he did an episode with Icy Stars and he did an episode with Asking Alexandria. And I'm pretty sure they're still on our YouTube page.
Oh, I don't think I saw the Icy Stars one. I definitely saw the Asking Alexandria one.
Okay, well maybe the Icy Stars one didn't make it online.
Because I have to look it up. But the whole thing I remember when watching that series is, why would Asking Alexandria agree to this? Like they just got drunk, like, and now they're in their like leather boots doing workouts.
Maybe that's why the Icy Stars one didn't really come on your radar, because I mean they were just like kids just getting yelled at by Warrior, but like the Asking dudes were like drinking wine like in the gym, and he's like, "What are you doing drinking?" Right? They're being like way more like like they were pissing him off way more than.
He was
16-year-old high school kids, that are like couldn't even like they were like in high school still, and Warrior's like, drop down and give me 20 push-ups, and they're just like, dude, I can do like 2. Like, what do you want me to do? I'm not like an athlete. Like, I couldn't do 2 push-ups when I was in high school. Like, Jesus. So, that was hilarious. I wish I could have been there for that. I wasn't living in California yet at the time, so. But yeah, I did get to meet him in the studio that one time. That was amazing.
What was his? So like when you're not recording, is he laid back? Is he giving you his political opinions as he would at those controversial speeches?
Well, that's the thing. Like he showed up and he's like, "Oh, you're Ash's guy," and I'm like, "Yeah, nice to meet you, man." Blah blah blah, and he just kind of got his things together, kind of listened to it a little bit, and did his thing. But then like I said, he stuck around for way longer than he needed to just to hang out. It was cool as hell. He just wanted stories. Yeah, and to just share some extremely earth-shattering stories with me, and for whatever reason. So, that was great.
It's always so interesting when you hang out with the wrestler. They love telling stories, and I have stuff like this too, where like a wrestler will tell me something, and like my response is like, I don't think you should be telling me this. That was exact.
I was like, I don't think I should have heard that.
Yeah, like straight up. Why are you trusting me with this information? I don't know.
Yeah, and this was pre him coming back to the Hall of Fame, and pre him like making up with everyone, obviously, because that happened right at the end. So, it was shortly after that he got back on YouTube and started, coming after Hogan and making all these injections of inspiration videos and stuff. And but we were, I was on emails with him for a while, like, sending him graphics and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool.
Did you design some, because I know Sumerian or Ash put out some more of your merch. Did you design some stuff?
I did like his MySpace layout and like anything that you'd like promo wise, like, flyers and stuff like that. Yeah. That was a fun time.
That must have been a trip for you. Like that. That's such a full circle moment, you know? Like,
yeah, I remember he sent me an email that says, it was all caps. He says, "This fucking kicks ass." And it's like the email from Mr. Warrior at hotmail.com or whatever. Like, it was like, that's the coolest email I've ever got in my life, for sure. Yeah. Easily.
That's great. That's really cool. So it was very shocking. You know, he had his Hall of Fame induction. Next night on Raw, comes out, delivers iconic speech that, in retrospect, his own eulogy. Yeah, like that becomes his own eulogy. And then dies the next morning. What was your reaction when you saw that news? Because for me, I couldn't believe it.
I definitely didn't believe it at first either, because it's like there's no way that would happen right after all this. Like, that's like almost like it was an angle, like a really demented wrestling angle. You thought that for a while, and then you started seeing other details about, you know, it was a heart attack and he was coming back from the airport or the hotel or whatever, and it's like, geez, that really happened. And then you watch the interview back and you see he's kind of like out of breath, and, you know, he's kind of huffing and, you know, kind of struggling. And then I think they actually put out a documentary later on the network where it was kind of following him around that whole weekend. Mm-hmm. And same thing. And then you start to realize that maybe he knew something way ahead of time, and maybe that was the catalyst for him wanting to get in good graces with Vince, get in good graces with the company, get his everything sorted as far as making sure his family would get a piece of, you know, his copyright, his trademark, whatever, you know. It's all too convenient. Like, I really think that he had a sense that he had limited time left, and that's why all that happened at the end. And then after that whole weekend of him going around and making good with people and, you know, squashing beef with Hogan and leaving all that behind him, like, once you shed all that, like, grief and resentment, you know what I mean? Like, you're good. And so, like, maybe that's all he needed to do. Maybe that's all he wanted to do. And maybe he knew. And that's always weighed on me too. So, because it's way too convenient and just way too, you know, all that happened just boom, 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 just, you know. And his family's good now. His family's going to be great. You know, if that didn't happen, you know, and you know, they wouldn't be set right now. So, man, I really think he knew, and I think he set that up because of that.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I could believe it for sure that he knew something was up, and maybe even just all that travel is kind of what put it over the top, unfortunately, for that weekend. Because I'm sure it was a pretty stressful weekend, you know, with all where you have to be and all that. It might have been too much, but
right, yeah.
Well, moving on to modern times, you say you still watch wrestling. What is your current wrestling diet like? What do you watch?
Yeah, I keep up with Raw and SmackDown more than anything. AEW really needs to do something to grab me again. I was a little late to the party. I probably started watching AEW right before what was it, Double or Nothing last year, the Vegas with CM Punk's, you know, match with MJF. That's when I got into AEW, and then, man, I think just since then it's been harder. I'm not going to say anything.
Okay, so with MJF, that was a Revolution. That was like last February. Was that match? But anyway, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, okay. It was a big. It was. Oh, like, no, you know what it was? Match. It was CM Punk versus
Hangman was Double or Nothing.
Hangman. That's what it was. Yes. Okay. And MJF was like the match before that. That was the weekend where he skipped out and
where he came back,
flew away. And,
yeah. Oh, no. Right. That was the one where he was having his shoot moment where he like flew away. Yeah. And then he came out at the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. So that was that night. I mean, that was great. You know, when they were able to pack T-Mobile Arena in Vegas.
I was actually there for that one. I somehow snuck into the front row for that.
Yeah, and then to fast forward a year, they're back in Vegas. They are in a venue probably half as big as T-Mobile, and they can't even pack it.
No, it was the same venue.
Alarming.
It was T-Mobile.
No, it was MGM Grand.
No, MGM was for the Dynamite. The pay-per-view was at the T-Mobile Arena. It was the same exact arena. 100%.
Pretty sure it was MGM.
100%.
You sure?
100%. It was the T-Mobile Arena. And they had, I actually just read it today. It was 10,000 in the arena and then like 8,500 paid, which was more than their last one. But yeah, they're still down from last year for sure. And I think the storylines aren't as gripping right now. They're a little all over the place.
Yeah. Do you think that it is the fact that MJF is a champion? Like, because a lot of people probably think that like this guy just shouldn't have a title, or maybe he's not the main attraction that he made himself out to be. Because I mean,
I think
all I can see is that he became champion, and then I lost interest, and I think a lot of other people did too. I don't know.
I think that's a very fair criticism. I thought he deserved the championship. And I liked him winning, but since winning, it's been disappointing. It's been disappointing, but I don't necessarily put all the blame on him. I just think that they don't do enough with him because like they've given him the mic too much and they give him too much time. Like you don't need a 20-minute MJF promo every week. I think also he needs to learn to edit himself down a little more. He rambles a lot. Like he can,
I agree.
He could get his promo across in half the time and it will leave people wanting more as opposed to getting sick of him, which I feel like
I've thought that before too.
As someone who like I like him, sometimes I feel like, all right, this is dragging on, or you can't put like I didn't really like that promo where he talked about driving in a car with a girl and he got into like an accident and then he made it seem like she did.
It got really dark there for a while. And then
it was just like it lost me. It lost me.
I mean, you're there with him, like you can see where he's going, and then it's like, but why did you go there? Like why did you just take me there? Like,
and also he had that promo like a few weeks before that, or like maybe a year ago now. This is probably where he talked about all the anti-Semitism he experienced and how like this little Jew boy will never be world champ. That one I loved, but it was at the wrong time because that was a babyface promo and he was like the biggest heel. So like, why are we? I don't know. He's all over the place. But I agree with you. It's been a little disappointing. Ever since Full Gear, which was the previous pay-per-view in November, which I also attended because I'm a fucking dork. But I just love watching wrestling live. It's very, very fun. And if I have the ability to do it, it's so much more fun than watching on TV.
100%.
And but yeah, I agree with you. Like ever since then, he's kind of lost it. I haven't liked the feuds he's been in. I didn't like this Four Pillars feud at all. I think it made the other three guys look worse. Maybe not as much Darby, but certainly Sammy and Jungle Boy especially, like they can't cut promos, and this exposed them really bad, and it exposed how much better MJF is at it than them.
It's like, all right, you guys are, we're going to put you all. I mean, it's a too many cooks in the kitchen situation too, because I would much rather just see MJF feud one person for a while and have it actually build up than, okay, how many people can we cram into this position that is going to be this slot on a pay-per-view? Because I think you saw that with the last card too, is like fucking 4 people on this team versus 4 people on this team.
It was a little much.
Tornado. It's like, all right, how many people can we get on here? Which WWE has been guilty of doing also, but I think
lately they've been
they figured that
controlled.
out. They figured it out.
I think WWE has been on fire lately.
Just straight up. I think for a while there I think before they decided that Mania needed to be 2 nights, that's when they, realized that like, okay, we can kind of like space things out a little bit more.
And like you were just saying, like they leave people off shows too. They like, we don't have to settle this at the pay-per-view. Just do it at the Raw after. Like, I like that they only have like 5 to 7 matches on a show. With AEW, sometimes it does feel like the pay-per-views are a bit of a marathon. And I don't want to have that feeling. You should have the feeling that you want more than this is too much. I can't handle this.
Agreed. And I love what WWE does with kind of throwing like a surprise at you with, like sometimes the first match is like, the biggest match on the card. And I love how they'll just like, all right, we need to start the show with a huge bang. They kind of like, maybe they kind of read the room like on the fly, like maybe people are just kind of on standby, like, all right, what order are we going in? It's like, oh, we kind of need to feel it out. Maybe that's a thing. Like, Triple H probably has that instinct where he's like, all right, we need to wake this crowd up, or they're already woken up. Like, we don't need to come out with a bang. Like, maybe that's a thing. Maybe they just kind of vibe it out.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe, but whatever they're doing, it's working because it's the most interested I've been in WWE in years. Although I don't really watch Raw, I kind of skip through. I'll maybe watch
Okay.
it the next morning or like watch YouTube. I just can't handle the
When you
the-
can skip through it when you have a fast forward.
Yeah,
option.
the
Yeah, I
three
agree.
hour, 3 hour format is too much for me. Like I cannot watch it live, just
Well,
because.
for being on in my time zone, it comes on for me at 8 p.m. So it's 8 to 11. Most of the other country, it's what 5 to 8. So I'm struggling to stay up. Like I'm falling asleep before the third hour most of the time, and then I'll have to come back
Wait,
the next
where
morning.
are
and-
you now? Where are you based?
I'm in Las Vegas.
Oh no,
Las
so
Vegas, yeah.
no, so you're in the. You mean it comes on at 5 for you?
If I had satellite, it would come on at 5. But yeah, I'm on Pacific time, so it comes on.
Oh, you're
It's
on the
not
West
live.
Coast feed. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, it's not
No. I
live
mean,
for
I
me.
also get it 8 to 11 on the East Coast. But I think if it was like from 5 to 8, I would watch it. I actually would love.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
If I had satellite, I would be able to watch Raw at 5 p.m.
Yeah, that would be great.
But
I think
That would be amazing.
I
Yeah.
think being on the West Coast and having the East Coast feed is the best way to consume wrestling. My big
Yeah,
problem with the
yeah.
pay-per-views, because I'm an old man now, is I pass out during the main event and I hate it because I like fight myself and I kind of like I'm always like awoken by the bell ringing because the match is over and I'm like, fuck, I
Yeah,
missed it.
I've definitely done that 100%. Like the bell wakes you up.
Yeah, yeah, or like
So
or
funny.
like the
You're like,
surprise run-in. It's like, oh, I guess this guy's back, you know. But
Oh,
if
he just kicked Roman in the face. Like what?
But I would love that the pay per view would be over by like 8 or 9, and then then I can go to bed or go out or whatever. I think West Coasters have the advantage, especially with pay per views. Like pay per views, you watch live, right? So you're getting
Yeah, there's been times where I've like I went to a SmackDown in LA, and then I came home and I was able to watch it live after I got
Oh
home.
yeah,
So that was cool because it was like a 2-hour show from 5 to 7. I get home at 8 when it shows. So like I got to watch the show twice, like a live basically. So, yeah, I agree. And then I think it's also funny that I think 100% Brock Lesnar sometimes just like wants to get out of there early. He's like, just put me on first so I can get out of here.
sure.
Like, because there's been plenty of times where the Brock match is first.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, that's pretty interesting move. I think he just wants to go home. I think he just wants to get
I
out
don't
of there.
blame. Hey, if I could get away with that, I would do the same shit.
Exactly. Yeah, and he's just like, I'm going on first. You're like, all right, what are you going to do? So that would make sense.
Well, Daniel, it's been a pleasure. I feel like we could go on like another hour or two just shooting the shit. So it's been
Yeah,
it's
we
been
can wrap it up if we need to. Sure.
absolutely lovely. Anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Your podcast. I hope everyone listens to your podcast.
Yes,
all the
keep
time.
listening to Squared Circle Pit. And check
That's all
out
I got. Yeah.
what artwork are you working? Like what artwork have you recently put out?
Man, we're working on some stuff. I mean,
Well, what's
yeah,
out?
nothing I
already
can
that
really
you
talk about right now.
What's come out that you can't talk
Yeah.
about? Putting you on the spot.
So if I'm not doing the artwork myself, I'm hiring someone else to do it, and I'm kind of liaisoning and putting the whole package together from that. So yeah, the new Veil of Maya album just came out a couple weeks ago. Veil of Maya Mother, out now on Sumerian Records. The vinyl packaging in particular, I just decided to just go off, and no one stopped me. So I'm really proud of how that came out. Holographic everything, and crazy packaging. It's something to check out. So yeah, check that out and listen to your podcast, and maybe check out my artwork sometime. I don't know, McBride Design on Instagram.
There you go.
That's me.
I'll include a link in the description. Thanks so much.
All right, man. Well, thank you for having me, and glad we got to do this.